All right, now we're going to take a look at the other type of exchange rate system, which is the floating exchange rate system, which is a little bit more comfortable for a lot of people because you already understand the basic ideas of supply and demand. Plus, we went over this, and you're going to see I'm going to use the same exact diagrams just to make it clear and easy for you to understand the dynamics of floating exchange rates. Because when we built the exchange rate diagram, we were talking about a floating exchange rate system, yeah? Because we were talking about dollars and euros and this family coming from Paris to go visit Disney World. And as a result of that, what happened? Well, they exchanged money and then the value changed as a result of the interactions and the government wasn't involved. So floating exchange rates are pretty simple to understand and in comparison, I think anyway, to fixed exchange rate systems. So we'll look at that and then we'll take a look at the advantages of floating exchange rate systems and the disadvantages, okay? So first of all, a definition. A floating exchange rate system is an exchange rate regime or system where the value of a currency is allowed to be determined solely by the demand and supply of the currency on the foreign market. That's pretty cool. So there's no government intervention to influence the value of the currency. The diagram below represents the market for US dollars in terms of euros. And this is what we looked at before. So there's no real sense of me going through this, right? You know that the price of US dollars in euros is here. We're talking about dollars, so therefore it's the quantity of dollars. It's the demand for what? US dollars in what? Europe. And who has US dollars? Only people from the United States. So the supply is of US dollars from the US. Key point though, in terms of vocabulary, you must only use the terms appreciation and depreciation in the context of a floating exchange rate system, okay? That's really important. The value of the currency is when it goes up, it's appreciation. When it falls, it's depreciation. And if you just think about something like, if there's something that you don't really like so much anymore, you lost appreciation for it, it depreciated just because you stopped liking it. And that helps you understand that that's the term you want to use for floating exchange rate systems, as opposed to revalue and devaluation, which are the terms used in fixed, okay? It's very important that you know that, okay? So we drew this diagram before, right? And remember, we were taking a look at the market for dollars, and we had this family go from Paris to the United States, and so they took their euros out of their pocket, right? They took their euros out of their pocket and put them on the foreign exchange desk table, and as a result of that, they walked away with what? With their US dollars. And so, therefore, the demand for dollars, see if I can get that to stand up. No. The demand for dollars, right, went outward in terms of euros because Europeans were buying that, right? But in terms of the euro, if you look at the same interaction, and if you're struggling with this, go back to the exchange rate diagram video that I explained all of this, because there's no sense in me explaining it again. You can look at that same interaction from the perspective of euros being priced in dollars, so it's the quantity of euros, and as a result of that family showing up in Orlando, Florida, they took euros out of their pocket and left them on the international exchange desk. So therefore, the supply of euros went outward, and as a result of that, the price went down, which makes complete sense because those two things are happening simultaneously. While the demand for dollars is going up because the family wants dollars, the supply of euros is going down, right? Or outward, not down. It's a positive relationship. As the demand for dollars is going up, the supply of euros is also going up because they're being supplied to the marketplace, okay? So if you don't get that, go check out the video again on the exchange rate diagram. But that's the explanation of these two diagrams. Is that cool? And as I also said, and I should re-mention this, make sure that you draw these diagrams sort of next to one another so that you can see that those numbers are related, right? This increase is related to that increase of supply. Cool. Okay, so now let's take a look at some advantages of a floating exchange rate system. Like, why would governments want this? Okay, first of all, interest rates. Okay, interest rates are free to be employed as domestic monetary tools and can be used for demand management policies, such as controlling inflation. What that means is that interest rates, remember, the price of money. So one of the ways that governments get foreigners to buy their currency is they lower the interest rate, which is the price of dollars in, say, the United States. So if the United States wants Europeans to invest in banks, savings accounts in banks, what do? They lower the price of dollars by lowering the interest rate. And as a result, European companies will buy dollars, which will increase its value, right, by investing in U.S. banks, okay? Or vice versa. So interest rates become a tool of governments in a floating exchange rate system. Secondly, the system's self-adjusting, right? So in theory, the floating exchange rate should adjust itself in order to keep the current account balanced. And what that means is, and like, you might not fully understand this yet, and it's okay. And at the end of the fixed exchange rate video, you saw me kind of like really try to explain a really complex topic in as short a time as possible, because actually, because you haven't studied or we haven't gone through balance of payments, which is the next unit, it's kind of hard to understand this. But basically what's happening is trade between nations will balance out, because as one country's currency goes up, the other currency's value goes down, and they'll find a equilibrium point, okay? Cool. Another advantage of a floating exchange rate system is that there's no need for high levels of foreign currency, right? Think about the whole Barbadian dollar situation, like fixed exchange rate. Like Barbados has to have a lot of US dollars or foreign currencies in its reserves in order to fix the market if it needs to. And with a floating exchange rate system, you don't have to do that, because it's not necessary to have to intervene, okay? So they don't need to solve any problem. It's a self-righting system. Some disadvantages of a floating exchange rate system: there can be a lot of uncertainty in international markets. Businesses trying to plan for the future will find it difficult to make accurate predictions about what their costs and revenues will be. If the peso is going all over the place in Chile, it's very nerve-wracking for foreign companies to invest here. Why? Because if, let's say, you take euros, you take US dollars and you invest in Chile, and the value of the currency is 500 to 1. Then all of a sudden it goes to 700 to 1. Whoa, it really affects the government's ability, or not the government, companies, foreign companies, to predict what their return on their money is going to be. Because if they invest at 500 to 1, and then all of a sudden when they want to get the money back to the US, the exchange rate's at 700 to 1, what that means is for every dollar, they only bought 500 pesos. But when they try to take their pesos back to the United States, now they need 700 of them to get their $1 again. And that can create uncertainty, and therefore a fluctuating currency can really be a detractor for foreign investment in a nation, okay? Second, disadvantages. It can be impacted by more factors than simply demand and supply. You might have seen this like September 11, 2001, which is a long time ago. It really impacted the flow of money around the earth, okay? It could be the result of natural disasters. It could be a result of political protests. It could be a result of a lot of things that affect people's interest in buying a currency, because a currency buy is really, unless you're going to visit the country, it's kind of a gamble, right? You're looking to earn money by buying other currencies. That's what huge banks do. That's what governments do. They try to earn money by predicting what's going to happen to the exchange rate in the future, and they want to buy low and sell high, just like a stock, okay? And then the last thing is that the floating exchange rate may worsen levels of inflation. And this happened just now in Chile, as a matter of fact. The Chilean peso was operating around 650 to 1 to the US dollar, and then it got all the way up to 800 in the last month. And the reason for that was that people were suspect of whether or not Chile was a good place to invest anymore. And as a result of that, if the price of the peso went from 650 to 800, and there's something like gasoline, which is priced in dollars, then all of a sudden Chilenos have to spend 850 pesos to get their $1 value of gasoline. So in other words, if a liter of gasoline is $1 and commodities come from the international marketplace, Chilenos are paying $6.50 for that gasoline. Well, if there's a rise, or if there's a decrease in value of the Chilean peso, then what happens? Well, now all of a sudden the gas costs 850 pesos. That's a huge increase for what? The same amount of gas. Why? Because the gas is priced in dollars, okay? So there are some disadvantages to floating exchange rate systems, and what we've set up here is these two polar things, right? There's the fixed exchange rate system on one hand, And on the other hand, we have a floating exchange rate system. And what we're going to look at next, of course, is this reality check of a managed exchange rate system where governments actually are involved in the marketplace, but not on a continual basis like they might have been in a fixed exchange rate system. So here we go, rolling on, my friends, to the next video.